You cannot have happiness in your life without being grateful for what it is you're happy. The peace, the love, the joy, the happiness, it all is derived from the place of gratitude. Hey, what's up? This is Brad with Be Real. Cash told me the other day, I don't know, I got 26, 27 podcasts. And it's kind of crazy. I was looking at the calendar. We're in June 2025. Rolling up on June 28th, when the company that I worked for 34 years decided they were going to go another direction. So it's already been a year. Crazy how fast time goes, which is something I want to talk about today. A couple things I want to talk about today. Last week we were talking about things you need to do less of to get out of your own way. I said that last week. A couple high points of last week was, there's that famous saying everybody says, show me your 5 best friends and I'll show you your future. Well, you take your 5 best friends and you spend 5 times more time with yourself than all those friends combined. So you become a very important factor in your success. And when I'm talking about success, I'm talking about, the level of your happiness, level of your success, relationships, all those other things. You play the key component in that. Yes, you play the key component in your success. And sometimes we can put potholes in our own way that deter us from being successful. So anyway, covered that last time. I want to talk about things you should enhance, do more of. Things that will help you along the way, take this, the difference between you feeling like I'm manipulating you or I'm just trying to help you is the intent of my heart. So hear this on my heart, it becomes very important that you take responsibility for wherever you're at. A lot of you guys know I went through recovery, and the first thing at any recovery, no matter what you do, AA, Celebrate Recovery, whatever it is, first thing is admit that you got a problem. So it's extremely important to just say, you know what, man, I'm where I'm at, and then that and accept the fact that, and that is success also, if you're not where you'd like to be. So anyway, more things to do that I feel like you should do more of, that will help you to continue to sustain success or to help you get it back on the road. One thing that's real important, like I talked about, I was sitting here doing this podcast with Cash last week, and I had this epiphany, like we ourselves, us as a person, we're like this factory, and we produce, kindness, we produce, support for our families. We support, we generate money, all these things. So we're like a factory that's producing something. Well, it's very important to, that what goes into that factory, it makes it very difficult for what goes into that factory. If you're importing substandard, subpar products and quality of products, you're importing that into your factory, and then you have substandard work conditions, substandard, all these other things. It's very hard to produce a great product. And so it's important, part of this whole conversation about what to do more of is making sure you're feeding yourself what you need to be feeding yourself. And like I said, it's not necessarily on a physical realm, but it's also in a mental realm. So that's the big thing, is you're putting yourself at a big disadvantage. It becomes very difficult. Let's just go to the physical realm. If you're putting bad food in your body, if you're putting bad thoughts in your body, if you're, putting bad people, negative people around you, you will never raise. It makes it very difficult to raise above the level of the people you also spend the most time with. That's why it's extremely, I used to love that when I played sports. I played people a lot of times. In fact, the majority of the times I went and played sports, whatever it is, racquetball, tennis, basketball, golf. I played people, always was there in the group was somebody way better than me, because you're not going to get better hanging around a bunch of people that are not as good as you are. And when I say that, I don't mean as people. So the biggest thing is make sure that you are importing and consuming the positive, great products. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The other thing is that, we're responsible for our own happiness. You hear me say that all the time. The level of your happiness, I used to have people walk up to me when I'm managing a lot of people. They're like, see that person right over there? They just ruined my day. Just took my happiness. I'm like, no, bro, they can't take your happiness unless you give it to them. So your confidence and the level of your confidence, and I'll tell you guys too, just a little bit, it's June 2025. I've kind of been struggling with this a little bit. And I've had to take my own medicine. I've had to slow down and capture every thought that I'm going through every day and ask myself, is that true? Is it I'm never going to succeed? I don't have enough of what I need to get to where I need to get to. That's all bullshit. And so your confidence and work, but you got to work on it. I've said this several times. I read it more than one time. We remember as human beings, we remember failure 4 times longer than we do success. So that's why we got to rewind ourselves and rewind with all the positive things that happened to us so that we can help remember. I'll tell you, one of them is my wife, Amber. She's great at it, man. And I'll tell you why. Is when I finally do get to the point of verbalizing something that I might be stressed about, before I can even get the sentence finished, she reminds me of 4 positive things that happened the last time we faced that situation. So what is she doing? Sure, she's replaying over and over and over the positive and the blessings, and I'm looking for the potholes. So anyway, it's extremely important for us to work on our own confidence, and we got to be fans of ourselves. We got to celebrate ourselves. We got to celebrate the things we're doing. You got to celebrate the victories. I told that to a friend one time who wasn't a very positive person. I said, man, you're missing a hell of a life. And he thought I was talking about mine. I go, no, bro, your own. I go, I'm extremely proud of what you're doing. This is what I was telling my friend. I'm extremely proud of how far you've come. Your family's extremely proud for how far you've come. Pretty sure God's extremely proud of how far you've come. And you're beating yourself up. Man, it's like all these people are in a movie watching this great movie, and the only person that's missing the movie is the director. So anyway, got to be a biggest fan of yourself. So the other thing I touched on a little bit too is, and this is what to do more of. I firmly believe that we are where we are currently today, both positive and negative, but let's talk about positive. We are where we're at today because of the actions that we had in the past, thoughts that we had in the past, and words that came out of our mouth. So the actions we've had in the past, our thoughts that we've had in the past, and words that have come out of our mouth have kind of put us to a trajectory of where we're at today. And for us to get, the only way for us to get to where we want to get to, if we want to keep pushing this thing down the road, is we have got to continue to improve our actions. We've got to continue to improve our thoughts, and we got to watch what comes out of our mouth, even in a joking manner. Don't let that come out of your mouth. The other thing that the guy that did Napoleon did the big study at the turn of the century was one of the major things. This is another thing we got to do more of. One of the major things that determines success between success and failure is setting goals. And I know, like, okay, as soon as I say that, everybody kind of, half the people that were watching the podcast stop watching. It's not a negative thing, but I'm just telling you, it's extremely hard. Look, I even catch myself, like when Amber asked me to, go to the grocery store, I catch myself. If you write down like bananas, you visualize in that store where it's going. It's the same thing with goals. You've got to write, and here's the big one too. Yeah, you need a 7-year goal. Yeah, you need, a retirement goal. Yeah, you need, the 2025 goal. But micro goals are even more important. And even to your to-do list for today or your to-do list for tomorrow, those are goals. And make sure you block those things off. There's nothing more discouraging. I'm talking from myself here. There's nothing more discouraging than to have a whole list of things you wanted to accomplish today, and you got to transpose those into tomorrow. Why? Get it done, man. You have the time to do it. Have micro goals to help you and what it causes you to do is that growth mindset that I'm going to touch on in there in a second. But it causes you those micro goals cause you to keep looking down looking down the road. That famous song that says there's a reason that the rear view mirror is very small and the windshield's huge, because you're supposed to be looking into the future, right? So same thing with micro ambitions. Yeah, you want to be ambitious. Grit's a big one. Grit is a perseverance and determination over a long period of time to conquer long-term and short-term goals. Grit is a big one. The other thing that I probably am not as great as I could be on this is once you get done, you got to go. Those of you that aren't a journal or write it down, but you at least mentally got to go through your day and go, you know what? Here's a couple things I could have maybe done better, but at the same time, you got to put equal or greater weight to I don't care whatever it is that you accomplish today. Make sure you're giving yourself credit for that, and that reflecting back on, truthfully reflecting back on the things that you've accomplished is extremely important. Like I was telling you about Amber, that she, when she looks back on our past days or whatever, all she sees is all the things that happen in our lives to that were blessings or treasures that happened in our lives to help us out in the moment that we were in. Self-care, one great thing that we need to do more of to continue to help us and get ourselves out of our own way is self-care, taking better care of yourself. Mickey Mantle, famous baseball player, he had a great quote, says, if I had known I was going to live this long, I would taken way better care of myself. So the other thing that it helps you with is if you're eating right and you're sleeping, and I know it sounds so elementary, but it's not something that a lot of us do, because if you eat right, you sleep right, and you exercise, you overcome the biggest challenge I keep talking about, which is the mental challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis with working with ourselves. But self-care, taking care, there's nobody, and a lot of us, especially leaders, a lot of us are big about helping other people and all that stuff. But I'm telling you, nobody is more important in your life than yourself. Because even if you have a significant other, even if you have children, they are dependent on you. And for them to be dependent on you and for you to be the ultimate person you can possibly be for them for a long period of time, you have got to take care of yourself. Growth mindset. That's a big one. I'm just in this, and when I should have started with this. This is something I can talk about real well, and this is something I can encourage everybody about real well. Not something that I'm always that great at, and so that growth mindset of thinking I'm telling you what it forces you to do. If you're focused on today and tomorrow and the next day, the human mind can only think of one thing at a time. So if you're thinking about, what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day in a positive way, then that keeps you from looking in the rearview mirror about the jacked up things that happened yesterday. And we all have them. And it's 4 times easier to remember those. So a growth mindset. The other thing is, I told you guys about that. My son that did Taekwondo, Thomas did Taekwondo, and I could not understand it. I could take him to the gym. I've always been a strong guy in the gym. He wasn't quite as strong as I was, but when he would go to Taekwondo, I'm telling you, he would break boards this thick. Today I still can't see it. And he would explain it to me. He goes, "Dad, I don't see the board. I've been trained to hit the spot behind the board." And that's what a growth mindset does for us. I've said this a gazillion times. One of the things that came to me, when we're going another direction deal hit me, is that relationships are the currency of the future. And I cannot tell you that becomes more and more prevalent to me as time goes on, that relationships are the currency of the future. And for me, that comes to, my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with kids. But you even got to think, guys, let's talk about like a professional athlete that plays like a singular sport like tennis, or a singular where it's a one person team, you think. But man, those professional golfers, they got 10 coaches. There's no such thing as going it alone. There's no such thing, tennis players, all those other things. Behind the screens, there are hundreds of people that are helping them to get to the point. Trying to go it on your own is the worst thing you can do. But you got to remember, if you're bringing somebody in that inner circle of the main 3 or 4 people, you got to make sure that those people have the same thoughts and ideals that you have and want to move you in the same direction that you do. Relationships, I've said that before. I can't tell you how important this is, because what happens now, there's a deal that says solitude is strengthening. Isolation's a killer. And what tends to happen sometimes is when things might not be going the way we would like them to be going, is we kind of pull back from what we really should be doing, which what you really should be doing is pulling more people in that want to be there for you. And if you really think about it too, this just hit me. I'm sure all of us have helped other people. And if we don't give others an opportunity to help us, we're really kind of blocking their blessing. So those people, more than likely, and I'm not good at it. I'm not good at asking people to help out. But those people that do are like, oh, I'm so glad you asked. You've done so much. I've wanted to help you. I'm so glad, and I'm like, well, I should have done this sooner. Why was I trying to row this boat on my own? Learn continually. You got to learn continually. And if you do that, that propels you and keeps you to moving forward. And it could be anything. I'm not a big, I'm in the past have not been a big reader, but I've been reading more. And the reason being is while I'm reading, I can't focus on, if I'm really truly focused on what I'm trying to, and I read anything from a little bit of fictional to I'll read, self-help type deals, Holy Spirit, Christian books, whatever it is. But I've caught myself while I'm reading that, it's extremely hard to let my mind, if I'm really paying attention to what I'm paying attention to, it's really hard to let my mind, veer off of that. Okay, the other big thing that I highly, highly suggest, if you want to keep your life moving forward and you want to stay out of your own way, and I know it seems so elementary, but it is so huge. And I've talked about it. I think I've had a whole podcast on it, and it is gratitude, man. Now just think about this. And just think about this. Gratitude. If you are in a state of anxiety, depression, if you're in a state of envy, anger, unhappiness, if you immediately flip to gratitude, which gratitude is actually almost like a little prayer, almost like saying your blessings. If you flip to gratitude, it's an instant pivotal change. And so, sometimes I just have to literally force myself to do that. But gratitude is one of the number one virtues and could be the baseline of all virtues. And it seems like it was so simple, and I'm not as great at it as my wife, but I'm getting better about it. And if you focus and practice on gratitude, because like I said, like 10 times in this podcast, we remember failure 4 times longer than we do success. But if we will be grateful for the things we have. Let me tell you something. One time, I think I shared this in another podcast. One time I was going through this very, very hard time in my life. And it was so bad. Like as soon as I got out of bed in the morning, I just felt like I was being attacked and the world was hitting me. And I just started, beating myself up. And I'm telling you what I did. I started this list of gratitude on my nightstand. And I know it's so simple. And it was like, I'm not, whatever was I was grateful for, but, like my kids, my job, whatever it is, my house, my being able to pay my bills, whatever it is, um, that I was grateful for. And I wrote that down. And every night before I went to bed, I would read over it till I just felt myself become a little at peace. And I put the piece of paper down and I tried to go to sleep. And I'll tell you what I did the next morning. I made a conscious effort that I was not going to pick that thing off. I was not going to let my feet hit the floor until I picked up that gratitude piece of paper, put my glasses on, and I read it. It was like, I'm going to be grateful before my feet even hit the floor. And I'm going to prepare myself in a mental, physical state of gratitude. And it was a game changer for me. And so I highly, highly, there's a deal that's been floating around that has a, if you really think about it, that has a lot of merit to it. And it is, what if tomorrow the only things in our lives were the things that we were grateful for the day before? Now think about that for a second. What about what the next day, the only thing that we woke up to was the things that we were grateful for the previous day? I guarantee you we would be walking around going, I'm thankful for that sofa. I'm thankful for my mattress. I'm thankful for my electric bills. I'm thankful for my kids. I'm thankful for my wife. I'm thankful for whatever it is, roof over my head. But that's what we literally need to do. Because if we do that, whatever we focus on manifests, and whatever, if we focus on those things, it continues to go. Hey, guys, like I said, remember just a few things, and I'll wrap this deal up. Watch what you're consuming. Watch what's coming out of your mouth. Watch your actions. All of these things, you got to be thinking that you're not even trying to make, these big catapulting major moves. You just want, there's no such thing as perfection. There's just progress. You want to just continue to make progress. And the best way to continue to make progress was to add more of these things. And you'll also find, if you'll add more of these things, like I was talking about today, your life has less room for all of the other things that happen in our lives. So anyway, everybody go have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Brad with Be Real.